Welcome back to Pokemon Episode Summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 363, Crazy as a Lunatone. The episode begins not with Ash and the gang, but of a shot of outer space that soon zooms in to a shot of Earth, and we then see a major crash as a meteorite comes down from space onto Earth, exploding, right as the sun had risen on Earth, and sending off a massive shockwave that goes for miles. Ken and Mary, the Pokemon Mystery Club, the PMC for short, saw the meteorite crash, and they instantly went to go investigate, extremely excited about investigating the crashed meteorite, so they hurried as fast as possible. Yeah, that's right, Ken and Mary from the Pokemon Mystery Club were back. I think it's been since fucking Johto. Although, Ken and Mary had a small problem. Even though they had seen the crash, they didn't know where precisely the meteorite had landed, so they had to search for it. At first, they simply just walked around the area holding flashlights, but they couldn't find anything. So, they come up with a plan B, and pull out some tools from their pocket, and use the tools to construct another one of their mechanical vehicles with robotic arms that they had originally used back when they encountered Ash and the gang before. Ken and Mary had designed the vehicle with a searchlight as well, so it was easier to look for the meteorite, and eventually they found it. Following this, they used the rocket launchers that they had installed on the vehicle to blast at the meteorite in hopes that they could break the pieces of the meteorite even more, so that they could have more compact and easy to carry shards of the meteorite to study, and also potentially discover something new about the meteorite from destroying it in such little pieces. However, Ken and Mary were not expecting a bright blue glow to come out of the meteor, and seconds after this, the Pokemon known as the meteorite Pokemon, Lunatone, rised up from the meteorite shards. The Pokemon Mystery Club lived for a discovery like this. They particularly looked at creatures from space, and Lunatone appeared to be a Pokemon that came from space, so this was exactly what they wanted, and they now were going to use the arms on their vehicle to grab Lunatone to study it. However, Lunatone was very agile and good at dodging, so it could just dodge the arms, catching the Pokemon Mystery Club off guard, and Lunatone noticed this, so it took its chance to take advantage of the Pokemon Mystery Club being off guard, and used a Psychic to lift the heavy vehicle up, therefore keeping Ken and Mary distracted even more. Once Ken and Mary regained concentration, though, they tried another method of capturing Lunatone, which was by firing a beam from their vehicle, trying to zap it with the beam, but Lunatone just absorbed the beam, which in turn negated any pain that it felt even for a split second from the beam. Once that beam had been absorbed, Lunatone opened its eyes wide and started glowing a red light. This hypnosis calms down Ken and Mary, and also freezes them in their tracks to the point where they can't do anything, and also turns their eyes red. And with Ken and Mary fully distracted, Lunatone takes the opportunity to escape to the nearest village, floating away, which happens to be known as Volley Town. Meanwhile, as for Ash and the gang, they were currently walking through a canyon with two sides, and the canyon was very narrow. They were getting pretty tired of walking, so Ash, May, and Brock suggested that they stop at a town to rest at the Pokemon Center for a little while, and Max agrees, checking his Pokénav when he finds Volley Town, the same town that the Lunatone had just entered, nearby. So Ash and the gang follow the directions on the Pokénav to Volley Town to take a rest at the center. They rush to the town as quickly as they can, because May was excited to have a hot bath in the Pokemon Center somehow, and Ash was just excited to finally give his Pokemon some rest. Meanwhile, Team Rocket was spying on Ash and the gang from some bushes, although Meowth and James were too busy snacking on rice balls to come out and spy, so this left Jessie on her own, even though she was eating rice balls as well. It's then revealed that Team Rocket had actually heard the meteor fall earlier, and Meowth had been trying to use his smarts to pinpoint the sound to the exact location of where the crash was located, and he figured that he was able to figure out where the crash was, and suggested that they steal it, with James also agreeing, so they popped up from the bushes to tell Jessie. Sure enough, she agreed with the plan as well, so did Wobbuffet as it popped up in its Pokeball, so Team Rocket officially declared that they were going to steal the meteorite and give it to Giovanni, hoping to earn a promotion, and they cheered at this. Meanwhile, back with Ash and the gang, Brock had read his guidebook on the way to Volley Town, and found out that Volley Town was usually pretty hospitable and energetic, so Ash and the gang were surprised to see that the town was very quiet, and there was almost no one in it as soon as they entered. And by almost no one, I mean no one at all, confusing Ash and the gang, and also freaking them out. All they saw was a tumbleweed rolling by, and Ash was reminded of Dark City in the Kanto region. Regardless, Ash and the gang decide to go in the Pokemon Center to ask Nurse Joy what was going on, but they find out that the Pokemon Center was completely deserted as well, and Nurse Joy wasn't even behind the counter. And just then, though, Nurse Joy appeared from the back room, having heard Ash and the gang enter and coming to investigate. This Nurse Joy happened to have red eyes, but Ash and the gang must have just thought it was a weird condition or something, because they simply just asked Nurse Joy for a room at the center for the night so they could rest, and also for Nurse Joy to take their Pokemon and heal them up. But Nurse Joy refuses in a very weird and slow voice, and it practically forces them to leave the Pokemon Center, saying this one was a bad choice for your average Pokemon Center, and walked out of the room, back into the back room. May tries to get Nurse Joy to come back, but to no avail, so Ash and the gang oblige and leave the Pokemon Center when it was now late at night. They were walking around town, trying to find some place to stay for the night, when Max brought up the fact that the Nurse Joy at the Pokemon Center sure seemed weird as fuck, and he certainly didn't expect a Nurse Joy to act like that, and the rest of the gang agreed. Brock thought that Nurse Joy was acting so strange that she was actually a fake Nurse Joy, and stated that he knew this because he considered himself the Nurse Joy expert, and he took out of his backpack something that he had not revealed that he had to Ash and the gang ever, which was a photo album of every single Nurse Joy that he's encountered. He then looks through the Nurse Joys of the Kanto, Johto, and Hoenn regions, along with the Nurse Joy that was Tan from the Orange Islands. I don't know how he remembered her at all, because he was never there, but maybe Ash and the gang described her, and he was able to get a picture from the description, because he was an expert in Nurse Joy after all. Anyways, Brock couldn't find this exact Nurse Joy, obviously, implying that this Nurse Joy wasn't any of the ones they encountered previously, and stated that he knew Nurse Joy just very well. They would never act like how that Nurse Joy they just encountered at the Pokemon Center did. Unless there was a really secret reason, but Brock maintained his theory that the Nurse Joy was fake because she apparently did not have perfume that he could smell on, where all of the other Nurse Joys did, and she also didn't have a romantic tone in her voice, like most of the Nurse Joys apparently did. Brock then suggested that they go and confront this imposter Nurse Joy immediately, but Max suggested that they just make their way back to the center, but then have a little break and eat some shit first, since he was starving, and he didn't want to have to confront anyone on an empty stomach. So, Ash and the gang quickly went out somewhat close to the Pokemon Center, and Brock started to cook some stew for supper, and also some bread, and he gave a whole bunch of his custom Pokemon food to all the Pokemon, which they sent out. Ash sent out his Pikachu, obviously, Grovyle, Swellow, Torkoal, and Corphish. Brock sent out his Fortress, Mudkip, and Lombre, and May sent out her Bulbasaur, Combuskin, Beautyfly, and Skitty. While they were all eating, suddenly, Lombre seemed to be attracted to something. Hearing the sound of some sort. At first, Lombre shrugs it off and continues to eat, but once he hears the sound again, he goes towards it, leaving his bowl of food behind, hoping to investigate whatever was causing the noise. A few seconds after Lombre goes, Brock turns around and realized that Lombre was gone, and his dish was still relatively full. Bulbasaur and Fortress had noticed this as well, and alerted the other Pokemon, while Brock alerted the other humans. It seems as though what Lombre had heard was some rustling in the nearby bushes, because that's where it went. It was now in the bushes, only to be grabbed by two disguised people in hazmat-looking suits. The two figures instantly popped out of the bushes to grab Lombre right where it was, and this alerted Ash and the gang to them. Ash and the gang instantly suspect that the people in the suits were, of course, Team Rocket, but they realized that this probably wasn't true, as they were very shocked to see that these two people had a Pokedex-like machine that they were able to use to get info on Lombre, much like an actual Pokedex, something Team Rocket would never have in a million years, because they knew that Team Rocket always never used one of those. Like, they've encountered them for, like, basically hundreds of episodes at this point, and they've never used one, so why would they start using one now? Even after learning about Lombre from their Pokedex-like machine, the two guys in hazmat suits claimed that Lombre had to be an extraterrestrial Pokemon, though Ash and the gang denied this, trying to convince them that it was actually Brock's Pokemon. And Brock tries to call Lombre back to its Pokeball to prove this. And sure enough, Brock was able to recall Lombre. After this, the two guys in hazmat suits figured their plan was ruined anyways, since they didn't find an extraterrestrial Pokemon, and took off their disguises to reveal themselves as Ken and Mary from the Pokemon Mystery Club. And Ash and Brock instantly recognized them from back when they helped the Cleffa and ended up finding a Clefairy spaceship. May and Max obviously didn't know them whatsoever, but Ken and Mary confirmed their identities and informed Ash and the gang that a meteorite had crashed earlier, and they had went to investigate it, since their entire goal as the Pokemon Mystery Club was to find Pokemon from outer space, which explained why they thought Lombre may have been an extraterrestrial Pokemon. And when they went to investigate the crashed meteorite, they encountered a mysterious Pokemon that they didn't know was called Lunatone, also adding that the meteorite crashed around this area, and they were the first ones to get to it. And it took some investigating to even find the Lunatone to get it to emerge. Ken and Mary then added that after their encounter with the Lunatone, something must have happened to them, such as the Lunatone erasing their memories, since they didn't remember anything, aside from first encountering the Lunatone, and suspected that they could have lost their memories through a shockwave, since that was the last thing they remembered, was getting hit by a red wave. And unbeknownst to them, that red wave was the hypnosis that Lunatone had fired. Ash and the gang had their doubts, but Ken and Mary assured them that their memories had to have been erased, because there was so much shit they didn't remember, and also, they had went into the village to look for Lunatone already, or town rather, Volley Town, and they assumed that all the villagers could have had their memories erased as well, so they could be all staying inside of their places, since they didn't know what they were even doing with life, or they could have left, not understanding what they were doing in the town in the first place. Ken and Mary also explained that the reason why they were wearing their disguises wasn't really to disguise themselves, but primarily because the special helmets on the disguises protect them from the psychic activities, such as the shockwaves that Lunatone had emitted, and the hypnosis. Suddenly, Ken and Mary just said goodbye and rushed off to go and look for the Lunatone again, stating that they needed to find it, since not only could they get the Lunatone from finding Lunatone, but they could also find more extraterrestrial Pokemon as well, because if one Pokemon came down from space, then there must have been others as well. There couldn't have just been a Lunatone. Once Ken and Mary were gone, Max admitted that he was actually very interested in the prospect of a Pokemon from space, and wanted to discover it as well. Brock admitted that Clefairy and Starmie were recently discovered to have come from outer space not too many years ago, so it was definitely possible that there could have been another Pokemon from outer space, such as Lunatone. Brock then expressed his concern for the fact that Lunatone could have done something to the villagers, including Nurse Joy. Brock tried to tell himself that maybe Nurse Joy was just acting strange because she had heard about the Lunatone and was trying to study it, so she was focusing all her time on it, so she just was annoyed by anyone coming to the center. But Brock knew deep down that this probably wasn't the case, and Nurse Joy was affected by the Lunatone. Ash suggested that they go back to the Pokemon Center not only to get some rest after this ordeal, but also investigate to find out if Nurse Joy really was affected by the Lunatone, because they felt it was their duty to help out. Because, they're the protagonists, although they knew they would have to be careful so as to not annoy Nurse Joy so they wouldn't be kicked out. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they had investigated the site of the meteorite where it crashed, and they found nothing. So they had decided to go back to spying on Ash and the gang, and found out that they were now interested in the meteorite as well. And they decided to follow Ash and the gang to the Pokemon Center, hoping that they could learn something about the meteorite or Lunatone. Unfortunately for Team Rocket, though, Meowth wanted to go back to the site of the meteorite first, so to make sure they hadn't missed anything. So they went back there and checked out the crater that the meteorite had caused, and they found nothing again. So they frustratingly went to the Pokemon Center. But since they were delayed, by the time they had made it to the Pokemon Center, it had already been locked up. Ash and the gang just barely managed to make it inside, and they must have closed the center after that, so that no one could come in, because they were probably scared of anyone potentially coming in if they were affected by the Lunatone or some shit. So while Ash and the gang were tiptoeing around the center, trying to find anything, Team Rocket couldn't get in. That was until Meowth spotted the window and declared that they could just enter through the window, and pulled out a ladder that they somehow had. Don't question it. They probably just dragged it along with them from their Meowth balloon or some shit, who knows. And they used this ladder to get into the Pokemon Center once Meowth had unlocked the window with his claws. Team Rocket were very happy to have made it inside the center, although they weren't nearly as happy when, as soon as they went in the center through the window, they crashed down onto the floor, hurting themselves. And they also caused a very loud bang, which Ash and the gang heard. So, as you can imagine, they go in the direction of the sound to investigate it, thinking it may be related to Lunatone or some shit. And we then see Team Rocket now inside the center, in pain from landing so hard, with Meowth's head, Jesse's legs, and James's ass feeling the pain the most. When suddenly, James finds his flashlight that he had lost before, just, tucked in his Team Rocket suit, and he pulls it out and turns it on, since it was pretty dark in the room. And his flashlight ends up creating a huge shadow, and when Ash and the gang go down a long hallway, they see the shadow. May, Ash, and Brock were disturbed by this shadow, finding it creepy, although Max was intrigued by it, wondering if it was the Pokemon from outer space, and saying this aloud. Hearing Ash and the gang, Team Rocket thought it was the perfect time to unveil themselves, as they revealed their identities, and do their motto, which Chimecho joined in on. And then Meowth declared Team Rocket's intentions to get the meteorite before them, knowing that Ash and the gang were likely looking for it. Although, in response to this, Ash and the gang just were in awe of what Meowth said, not understanding, because they weren't looking for the meteorite. They were looking for Lunatone or any suspicious villagers or townspeople. Jessie assumed that Ash and the gang didn't know that the meteorite could have potentially been in the Pokemon Center, and therefore she scolded Meowth for giving away this information, and now, therefore, making it more challenging for Team Rocket to potentially get the meteor, because Ash and the gang may look for it, though, in the process, this just made Ash and the gang more curious about the meteor being at the Pokemon Center, and they were about to ask Team Rocket about this, but before they could, they then heard Nurse Joy's voice. Team Rocket and the gang were obviously all terrified to get caught, so they went to go hide in the nearest room, which was the center storage room. The gang and Team Rocket immediately wanted to argue with each other about being trapped together in a room, because, they obviously didn't want to be, but Brock managed to calm everyone down and suggest that they all put their differences aside for a while, and just think of what they were going to do to get out of the storage room without being eventually caught by Nurse Joy. But before they could think of a plan, they all were then interrupted from talking when they heard a rustling sound coming from the nearby boxes in the storage room. So, James turns on his flashlight again to investigate, and much to his surprise, he immediately spots the Lunatone. Ash and the gang saw the Lunatone and were shocked as well, so Ash used his Pokedex on it to learn more about it, and not only did he learn more than Lunatone's name and its typing, he also learned that it was classified as a meteorite Pokemon, and was said to have come from space. So, Ash and the gang and Team Rocket came to the conclusion that this had to have been the Pokemon from space that Ken and Mary had talked about. Ash and the gang questioned, though, why Lunatone would be in the Pokemon Center storage room if it came from space, and eventually came to the conclusion that maybe it was hiding out. Jessie then went up to Lunatone, wanting to capture it, obviously, but before she could do anything, Lunatone emitted its red light, just like it did to Ken and Mary, and this affected Jessie, and she instantly ordered everyone to get out of the center immediately, seemingly now on the Lunatone's side. James and Meowth managed to shake her back to her senses, and they all realized that Lunatone used hypnosis on her, and Brock speculates that Lunatone could have used hypnosis on all the other villagers, and basically made them stay away from it. Meowth confirms this when he hears Lunatone saying something, and basically, Meowth translates and reveals that Lunatone was scared when it came to Earth, so any humans around it, it used hypnosis on to make them scared of it, so that they wouldn't do anything to it, and it was hiding out in the center. Just then, Nurse Joy, who was investigating, opens the door to the storage room and turns on the light, surprised to see that Team Rocket and Ash and the gang had found Lunatone. And she tells them to be nicer to it, basically confirming that she was under the Lunatone's hypnosis, because basically the hypnosis had made the villagers nicer towards Lunatone, so they wanted everyone else to do the same. Although Team Rocket denied Nurse Joy's request and stated that they were actually going to capture the Lunatone, and Jessie and James send out Cacnea and Swiper and have them use Needle Arm and Bite at the same time to attack Lunatone. which really surprises Nurse Joy. But anyways, before Cacnea went in for its attack, it of course hugged James first, prickling him, but when it and Swiper did go in for their attacks, Lunatone just opened its eyes wide and easily dealt with Cacnea and Swiper by using Psychic to knock them both out. Much to Ash and the gang and Team Rocket's shock, though, Lunatone was so tired out from using this strong Psychic attack that it collapsed on the ground, and the Psychic then stopped, releasing both Cacnea and Swiper, even though they were already knocked out. Presumably because Lunatone was so tired, it also lost its effect on Nurse Joy, because Nurse Joy came to her senses, and Brock instantly went to go flirt with her, also offering to help Nurse Joy treat Lunatone before she even asked about it. Meanwhile, Meowth was actually having a conversation with Lunatone, genuinely concerned about his health, because, even though he was evil, he did care about other Pokemon. That was evident, and he learned after talking to Lunatone that it used so much Psychic, it got its energy depleted, and its energy was already pretty depleted from its encounter with Ken and Mary. And Lunatone also revealed that it needed Moonlight to be healed up. Meowth wanted to help Lunatone, and he figured getting it some Moonlight would be quite easy, so he asked Jessie and James if they'd be willing to help, but Jessie and James denied, since they had power over him since they were the humans, they said, and insisted on using force while Lunatone was down to capture it and take advantage of Lunatone's weakness. So Viper and Cacnea recovered, and Jessie and James ordered them to use Needle Arm and Bite on Lunatone, with Viper also going in for a Poison Tail. Ash expected Lunatone to be able to cover for itself, but he remembered that it was too tired, so he took action, sending in Pikachu to use a Thunderbolt, which sent Team Rocket blasting off, including Meowth, even though Meowth wanted to help Lunatone. And since he didn't reveal to Ash and the gang the fact that Lunatone needed Moonlight to be healed, Nurse Joy and Brock, along with Ash, Max, and May watching, started to treat Lunatone, taking it to a stretcher room and hooking it up to some wires. But none of Nurse Joy's treatments were doing anything, obviously. Fortunately, though, Nurse Joy didn't need Meowth at all. She eventually was able to come up with the correct diagnosis and came to the conclusion that Lunatone was in really, really weak condition, but it would get better since there was one way they could heal it. They would have to expose it to Moonlight, since the Moonlight would give it all its energy back. Ash and the gang instantly offered to help give Lunatone Moonlight, since it would be an exciting time, since they could see the interesting effects the Moonlight had on a Pokemon firsthand. But Nurse Joy clarified that the journey wouldn't be as simple as just going outside and giving Lunatone Moonlight, since even though the full moon was tonight, the moon couldn't be seen from Volleytown, since it was surrounded by mountains and cliffs. Although Nurse Joy also added that, despite the full moon not being visible from Volleytown, the best place nearby to be exposed to the full moon's moonlight, where it was fully visible, was on a mountain known as Camerupt Mountain, explaining that it wasn't hard to miss, since it was just over the river and through the area, with twin mountains that looked like the formation of a Camerupt's back. That's why it was called Camerupt Mountain. Ash and the gang assured Joy that they should definitely go to help her out, since they'd seen a Camerupt, like just last episode, pretty much. So they knew what a Camerupt looked like, and it was fresh in their minds, so it'd be very easy for them to spot Camerupt Mountain. Max was confident that getting Lunatone to Camerupt Mountain would be easy. They just had to find a way to carry it there, and Nurse Joy suggested that they bring it in a cardboard box on wheels, with the help of some other modifications. Brock thought this was a good idea, but warned Max that getting Lunatone to the mountain may not be super easy, since Ken and Mary was still at large, and they may come after Lunatone. Regardless, Nurse Joy and Ash and the gang set off on their journey away from Volleytown through a mountainous pass towards Camerupt Mountain, pushing Lunatone on a huge cardboard box on wheels with the help of some other equipment, with Brock being the one pulling the box and everyone else keeping it hoisted up and holding it. Brock also liked the keeping Lunatone covered in a box idea, because it meant that they could hide it from Ken and Mary if they showed up. And also, Pikachu was inside the box with Lunatone to keep an eye on it to make sure it was okay, and it didn't go crazy if it suddenly woke up and was in pain or something. Of course, as they made their way to Camerupt Mountain, they all encountered the Pokemon Mystery Club, Ken and Mary, once again. And they immediately questioned Ash and the gang and Nurse Joy if they've encountered anything related to the meteor or the mysterious Pokemon that they saw, adding that it was moon-shaped, because they had seemed to remember that now. Obviously, Ash and the gang didn't want to reveal the truth, so they simply lie and say they had no idea where the meteorite or Lunatone was, and they were just going to Camerupt Point on Camerupt Mountain to have a moon party there, since the full moon was most visible there. Although they then come up with an idea, deciding to lie that they heard some rumors in Volleytown of where Lunatone may have ended up, and give a whole bunch of random-ass false directions. And after this, they immediately pass by, and Ken and Mary let them, and Ash and the gang and Nurse Joy sigh of relief, very happy to get Ken and Mary out of their way, assuming that they wouldn't come back. Although Ken and Mary let Ash and the gang pass, though, Ken remained suspicious, and ended up passing the suspicion onto Mary as well. They were both convinced that Ash and the gang and Nurse Joy had to have been hiding something, as they seemed way too eager to get away from them, so they decided to use their building skills with their toolkit that they always had to build a new machine very quickly to help them locate Lunatone or some shit. Anyways, Ash and the gang and Nurse Joy continued on with the Lunatone in the box, and they eventually were reaching the top of the mountainous pass they were on, and Max was the first one to notice a distant formation of rocks, which resembled the back of a Camerupt. At least, yeah, it's two little volcano humps there that stuck out. The rest of the gang decided to trust Max, believing that he knew what a Camerupt looked like more than anyone, since he was the Pokemon expert of the group, but they were still a bit skeptical. That wasn't until Nurse Joy confirmed that it did in fact look like a Camerupt. So Ash and the gang knew they were at the right place, with Nurse Joy being the first to confirm this, and also she looked at her watch and came to the conclusion that the moon was about to rise at any second, so they quickly went up to Camerupt Point and waited for the moon to arrive. And they also let Pikachu and Lunatone out of the box so that Lunatone could see the moon rising up. Sure enough, a big yellow round thing soon rises above the mountain. The moon had arrived. Well, that's what Ash and the gang thought at first, but then they saw that it was actually just Team Rocket in their Meowth balloon, refusing to give up on catching Lunatone. I don't know how they mistook the Meowth balloon for the moon, but I guess it kind of makes sense. It is kind of the same shade. Ash and the gang were even impressed with Team Rocket's ability to look like the moon, although they weren't impressed when Team Rocket launched a mechanical hand from their Meowth balloon to grab Lunatone. Ash goes to jump in front of Lunatone to block the mechanical hand, but he didn't have to, as something else blocked Team Rocket's mechanical hand first. It was Ken and Mary, who came in their mech from before and launched their own mechanical hand from it, and it basically intercepted Team Rocket's. Thankfully, Ken and Mary hadn't grabbed Lunatone, they only just stopped Team Rocket's claw, but Ash and the gang and Nurse Joy still were panicking, because they knew that Ken and Mary were just as big, if not bigger threats than Team Rocket, and Nurse Joy demanded both Ken and Mary and Team Rocket to stop, as did Ash and May, but they both refused. Both of them declaring that they were going to get Lunatone, even if they had to fight for it. Team Rocket and the Pokemon Mystery Club both recognized each other from the whole Cleffa incident, and they weren't going to let each other stop each other from getting Lunatone. Eventually, this led to an argument between the Mystery Club and Team Rocket, as they both angrily yelled at each other and called each other weird. However, the Pokemon Mystery Club was only arguing with Team Rocket as a distraction, since they knew that they could use their vehicle, which was heavier than Team Rocket's Meowth balloon, to shake the balloon around a bit. So they grabbed the balloon with their mech's claws and shook it around, and they didn't let go. Then, the PMC press a button on their mech to release an electric shock that goes through the arms, or claws, whatever, on their mech, and since they were metal, they acted as lightning rods and transported the shock to the Meowth balloon, destroying it and sending Team Rocket blasting off. As the PMC laugh at this and brag about how now all they had to do was capture Lunatone, Ash and the gang countered that now that Team Rocket was gone, all they had to do was stop the PMC. So, Ash has his Pikachu use Iron Tail, trying to destroy the vehicle, but Ken just unleashes one of the vehicle's arms right at Pikachu and deflects the Iron Tail with it, also knocking Pikachu down and injuring him a bit. So, Brock then takes action as he sends out his Mudkip and has to use a water gun. But despite the water gun at least hitting the vehicle, it doesn't do anything to it, and this just allows Ken to unleash another one of the vehicle's arms and knock Mudkip down to the ground with it. This leads May to try a little bit of a different strategy, as she sends out her Beautyfly and has to use Silverwind. Since this attack wasn't direct, the arm couldn't hit Beautyfly, since Beautyfly wasn't super up close to it, and it also couldn't deflect the attack, so the Silverwind actually did a lot of damage to Ken and Mary's mech, and stopped them from using the arm. With the mech pretty damaged, Mudkip and Pikachu were able to recover a little bit of their energy, and used a Water Gun and Thunderbolt respectively to do a little bit more damage to the mech, but at the end of the day, it really didn't do a whole bunch. Just then, Nurse Joy notices that the moon was rising for real this time, and everyone watched as it slowly started to rise. And sure enough, Lunatone used its move Moonlight to absorb the energy from the moon, and it was good as new, back at its full power. So strong that it was able to float back up, and it was in a stronger condition than Ash and the gang had ever seen it. And it was so strong that Ken and Mary wanted it even more, and since the mech wasn't entirely destroyed, they raced towards Lunatone, trying to grab it, deploying the hands once again. Nurse Joy warned the PMC that this was not a good fucking idea though, as she noticed that Lunatone was gearing up for a very strong hidden power, and Ash and the gang and Nurse Joy watched extremely closely as the hidden power entirely powered up to destroy Ken and Mary's mech and send Ken and Mary blasting off. May wondered if Lunatone really did come from outer space, or if it just charged up with the moon. Max and Brock admitted that they didn't quite know the answer, but they did like a good mystery, and stated that some things were best left unsolved. Although Ash, on the other hand, believed the mystery was solved. He thought it was quite obvious that Lunatone had come from space, as it was now floating away towards the moon, and Ash felt proud for being involved in solving such a huge mystery, and helping such a unique Pokemon like Lunatone. And as he observed Lunatone heading back to its home on the moon, he waved goodbye along with everyone else, and they watched slowly as Lunatone disappeared into the moon until it was no longer visible. Once Lunatone was back on the moon, Ash and the gang said goodbye to Nurse Joy and went back to Volleytown before continuing on their journey away from Volleytown towards Lily Cove City. As Brock recalled Mudkip and May recalled Beautyfly, who were happy to have helped Lunatone as well.